Ladies and gentlemen, it's Spoilerin time. This is the show where we take all that hard work we do on Cordkillers, figuring out how to watch, what kinds of services, what kind of machines, what kind of boxes you need, and we watch the shows and we spoil the crap out of them. This week we're going to spoil episode 10, season 6 of Justified, episode 9, season 3 of Better Call Saul, and we have a special tournament planned. I'm Tom Merritt. Brian Brushwood is going to help me explain that.
Hot damn, man. I'm excited. First of all, apologies. I apologized on Cordkillers. I'll apologize again. The plan was for me to get all the way caught up on Fargo, but luckily there's one more episode before the season finale. I will definitely do that next week. We're going to spoil the crap out of Fargo all at once. I am so stoked about it. Tom, we've got an editorial decision here. I feel like from the vibe you've given me on American Gods, the plan was always after episode 3 when I press pause for me to get caught up. But I got to tell you, your lack of enthusiasm kind of has me wondering why I would make good on that claim.
Well, let me give an answer to the audience and to you. To the audience, I would say, if you haven't read the book and you love gorgeous cinematography, insane acting, clever writing, you should probably watch American Gods. If you want fast-paced plot, you're going to be disappointed. That's not what they're delivering. And that's not a criticism. That's just not what's happening here. For you, Brian, I feel like all of that really plays into saying, this is not a show you're going to enjoy.
Well, and keep in mind, I am somebody who can get seduced by a meditative, leisurely paced, gorgeous, rich, well-acted show. And keep in mind, I was the apologist through the whole first season of The Leftovers. And I'm glad, and it really paid off on what I was reading an article recently saying that the second season of Leftovers is probably in contention for the best second season of anything ever, right? And I'm glad it paid off. But I'm somebody who's read American Gods. I'm somebody who appreciates the rich visuals and the good acting that I saw in the first 3 episodes, but also I felt empty and devoid of surprise and a sense of progression.
And I don't think you're going to get it.
Yeah, which is really weird because normally nobody's a bigger fan of the TV show than the people who read the book. But I like the book so much, and the TV show isn't bringing me anything. This is not to say I have not enjoyed American Gods. I have, but even I have found the pace to be a little slower than I would prefer. And I know that's one of the things that was bothering you in those first 3 episodes. So. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe it'll be a surprise thing that I just binge because, as somebody who's in a relationship, both in real life and on Netflix, you understand that there are certain guilty pleasures, like you want to be able to fill the time without, calling a committee together from time to time.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing, we're going to be running out of Justifieds pretty shortly. We're going to be talking about episode 10 today, as I said. That leaves us with 3 more weeks after this week of Justified to discuss. So we're going to have to pick our next library show. And to do that, we're taking suggestions both through a contest. You can email us, cordkillers@gmail.com, put the word contest in the subject line and a suggestion for the next show in the email, but also with a tournament. So there's an open thread at patreon.com that you can go to and suggest a show. Starting next week, we're going to put together polls. And we haven't decided exactly. We'll kind of see what suggestions we get, and we'll figure out, is it going to be 4 shows or 8 shows? But each week we will narrow them down because we'll put the polls as 1-on-1s or maybe 3 in a poll, and the winner of each poll will then go on to face the winner of the other poll.
Speaking of which, one of the ideas that we kicked around right before we went live today was the idea of either you and me representing as if we were lawyers, one show or another, or what about this? What if we just have audio arguments of like 1-minute cases that people make, and we listen to case 1, case 2, and then we give our impressions and the folks at home vote. I think this would be a fun experience. I've seen a lot. I did peek in on the emails about all the suggestions. A lot of people were suggesting that we do something lighter, something shorter, something comedy or just different to kind of break the pattern of heavy procedural crime drama that we had been doing all the way for almost 10 years.
Well, The Wire, The Shield, and Justified.
Yeah.
On the Patreon thread, we've got Orphan Black, we've got The Americans, MacGyver, somebody suggested. Black Sails is another one. So yeah, we're getting lots of a wide variety, which is good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think the right answer will be something that we will never resent sitting down to watch, but that but that also would be I don't know, out there. Like I don't know. We'll figure it out. Save it for later.
If you want to vote,
Terriers. Of course, I'm undoing exactly what I said. That's a procedural crime drama. But Terriers is a one and done single season from the guy who did The Wire and so on. So that might be a good one. Or we talked about Firefly, or people are suggesting certain comedies and so on. I don't know.
Keep the suggestions coming. Patreon.com or cordkillers@gmail.com. Let's check in on the summer movie draft.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just waiting to see what Spider-Man and War for Planet of the Apes do.
I'll tell you what, man. It feels very different halfway through this draft. I got to tell you, and to be honest, nothing would make me happier. All love and respect to you, Tom. Part of me is really rooting for Team Big and Tall. I want somebody who's not one of the co-creators of the draft.
I mean, honestly, it's like we're Yankees and Red Sox, and you're out there cheering for the Oakland A's, right? You're just like, come on, somebody different for once.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And to be honest, I think they might be able to pull it off. They may have pulled the Moneyball of the movie draft. So right now, the only movie they've had out so far is the Boss Baby.
And Rough Night.
But Spider-Man Homecoming could be pretty huge because it's certainly being marketed as maybe, just maybe, an Iron Man movie in disguise. And War of the Planet of the Apes, that whole reboot series has been extraordinary so far. I am super stoked. Like, I did not realize how stoked I was for this third movie until it hit me all at once.
So right now, Big and Tall has 180 million. To DTNS is 602, and all we have is Atomic Blonde. So Wonder Woman's still going to bring in a few more bucks before it's all said and done. But essentially, you look at this and you figure they've got to make up 450 million, say, out of War for Planet of the Apes and Spider-Man Homecoming, which is possible, not a given, right? Like that is eminently possible. But it's also something that is not a guarantee. So we've got a contest, which is amazing. And what I was looking at with Rough Night was, are they going to get a nice chunk of change that helps push them over the top? And I'll need Atomic Blonde, to come up with something to fend them off. And it doesn't look like it. Rough Night only came in with 8 million last weekend.
I'll tell you what, man, we all love an underdog story. And this is a very credible underdog story. I'm going to be happy. I'll be happy if you win, Tom, because you genuinely saw success where I was predicting none for Wonder Woman. And I'll be happy for Big and Tall because coming out of nowhere with what seemed like a bunch of bizarre picks, I would love it if they moneyballed their way to win.
Well, we'll have to keep waiting to see. Next week, June 23rd, Transformers: The Last Night, the Scotch Brothers movie is out, and also Despicable Me 3 and The House. Both of those are Cordkillers movies coming the week after.
Hopefully those will do better than the first three movies they picked.
I think Despicable Me 3 will do respectable. It'll be respectable film 3 for Team Cordkillers.
But also, they're not Christy and Malengo. They're not watching right now. Like it's kind of adorable that Malengo, who wrote the missives that criticized us and exactly nailed everything. I mean, they kind of had a knack this year of picking all the wrong movies, right?
Despicable Me 3 is a great movie to pick.
$500 million, great.
I mean, not enough to make up the difference. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm saying that is a great pick. If The Mummy actually does what it should do, which is, hey, summer popcorn monster Tom Cruise, then they're in contention. But The Mummy tanking at 57 million. Ouch.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah. All right. shall we move on to Better Call Saul, episode 9, season 3?
Yeah, as with always, like my appetite for Better Call Saul is so strong that I immediately consume it the moment it comes out, and then a week passes and I'm busy spending all Monday getting excited about watching Better Call Saul, and then I remember, oh crap, I have to remember and talk about what happened a whole week ago.
Well, and one of the things that happened is Chuck was getting ready to do the lawsuit to fend off the pulling of the insurance or the raising of the premiums.
Yep.
that we saw happen because of Jimmy's visit to the malpractice insurance place. And finally, Hamlin saying, you should just retire. Because you've become a liability. And this, of course, when Chuck is finally putting it together, finally figuring out how to live with electricity and going to great lengths to prove it, to show people that he can do it. And now, what is Chuck's response? Chuck's response to everything is, you'll do it my way or I will sue you. And now he's going to have to do that to Hamlin.
I have an inherent weakness for any scene where an actor plays somebody who's acting. I don't know why I love it. I love people. I love actors playing other actors who are doing an impression of their acting or whatever. And like that scene when Hamlin shows up and just, Chuck is just cool as can be. He's got electric induction stovetops running and boiling pasta and using a mechanical Jeep job to spin up the whatever. And then, when the lights are on, he's like, it's fine. And the moment Hamlin leaves, he just grabs his wrist, and it's like, Michael McKean does a fantastic job of portraying that cognitive dissonance of a scheming, like this is a human being who's portraying another human being who's pretending to be a third human being to Hamlin. And I just adore scenes like that.
Now, the other horrible sequence of events is Kim running herself ragged, working way too hard, taking on an extra client that she didn't need to take on, but kind of felt like maybe she should, because I think her secret plan is to float Jimmy during this time when he hasn't been able to make any money because his license is suspended. And then, of course, falls asleep at the wheel and crashes the car, missing the meeting that she's running late for.
Which, by the way, that was the mark of a good magic trick, is when you get to a point and you realized, oh, you sons of bastards, you guys had been setting this up the entire time. We were primed for this experience. Like when Kim had, last week or the week before, she had a meeting, and so she set a timer, and then she just closed her eyes, and they did a very jarring video edit to bring to the loud, the loud, like, wake up, like, and it did a really good job of creating a similar experience to nodding off, and they used the exact same trick in this episode, and I thought it was just fantastic.
We also get Jimmy messing around with the settlement because he thinks, well, shoot, if I can get the Sandpiper settlement done, I will get a payout from that. And so he noses around to find out what's holding it up. And it turns out that Irene, the class settlement representative, has been told to hold off. And so he manipulates the entire community of Sandpiper to turn against her by making them think that she's holding out for more money and doesn't care about them, to the point where he breaks poor Irene down into tears after she wins bingo. Yeah.
This was a stark and, to me, somewhat painful reminder that the guy that Jimmy McGill becomes is a bad guy. He's a bad person. Like, Bonnie full on walked out. Like, she found an excuse to leave the room for parts of it because Bonnie's somebody who feels, she's very empathic. And so seeing him manipulate and ruin the life of an old lady because it was convenient so that he could make $1.3 million was too much of a turnoff for her to sit there face to face with. That was, I got to admit, I don't know. It kind of put a damper on, like, on the one hand, I love watching the hijinks. I love watching a descent into madness. There's a reason that we loved Breaking Bad, but this was the first moment in this series that I was faced with the harsh reality that Jimmy McGill is going to become a human piece of dog crap, like just full on.
And they've been setting that up for years, right?
Of course, and you would think I'd be ready.
Retirement home, right, to make his name. And you've been waiting for him to take advantage of them, and he hasn't. He's actually, as slimy as it was to manipulate their emotions with his patter, he's done right by them. He created this whole Sandpiper lawsuit in the first place to get them to be treated right. But in the end, he doesn't seem to think there's anything wrong with making Irene cry as long as it gets everybody the right result in the end. And they set you up with this hilarious mall walking and the shoes and everything, and then just twist your heart. I mean, that scene when she walks out at bingo in tears is just, it's on the one hand, the least harrowing of any Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul scene, because nobody dies. There's no blood. No one's permanently harmed, but it is one of the most heartbreaking.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Oh, doggone it. There was something I had on pause. I was holding on to it, but I've lost it. Also, for the record, there are certain clues that almost certainly indicate to me that his over-celebration at the end, the fact that he went up and was being a distraction to Kim, saying like, no, I got it. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to all that stuff. It's like, I mean, and plus, like, through that lens, look at the conversation he had with the old lady, and he's very careful as a lawyer not to tell her what to do. So instead he says, do what your heart says and all that. I mean, you realize what her decision's going to be, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. And he knows that too.
Well, no, I think you and I are not in agreement on this. Oh. I think that he thinks that she's going to take the settlement, but he very deliberately says, do what your heart tells you. I guarantee you, I will bet you hard money. And by the way, most people listening to this have already watched the episode. Guarantee you hard money. What her heart told her to do was to withdraw from the lawsuit. And that will be a big surprise to him.
No, because her friends are mad at her because they feel like she's keeping their money from them. Withdrawing from the lawsuit would make that worse.
It'll be really interesting to see. I wish I had a time machine and I could know what people are thinking about our conversation right now, because I still feel like they so played so heavy that he won and got his way that it makes me think that there's no way he won and there's no way he got his way.
Well, I agree with you there. And I think a surprise twist from Irene might be coming, but I don't think it could be her withdrawing from the suit. Maybe agreeing to less or changing the terms or something. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not a win for Jimmy. Although they could play it as a win for Jimmy and then Kim or someone else just points out how awful it was. I mean, you already saw Hamlin basically like, I know what you're up to, Jimmy. So maybe they try to bring a lawsuit against him or not. I'm not against the idea that this is going to backfire on Jimmy. I just don't think it would be her Irene withdrawing.
I think, okay. So they spent that whole episode presenting us with A and B. And as a magician, I kept the whole time thinking like, what's C? What's C going to be? What's C going to be?
No,
and
I
feel like C is going to be.
And then you show me it's 4.
Yeah,
and I'm
exactly.
like, wait, that was 2 + 2.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to convince me it was 5. You did the trick wrong.
Right. So couple of things. I would say the standout moment of this entire episode, there were two.
Kim from Chicago just had a dark thought.
There were two. Oh, that's interesting. You said dark, and so I assume she dies. There are two standout scenes, or two moments Bonnie got up and left. One of them was when he was manipulating an old lady to break her heart in the last few days of her twilight. The other was the tension, the expert storytelling, the directorial masterpiece that was the scene where Kim was standing, was stuck with her car in the oil field. That was amazing.
Which is a setup for the later car wreck.
Well, yeah, yes, but also like it does that great job of getting you so tense. Like, what is it? Is she stuck? Is she ever going to get out? Oh, she made it out. Oh, wait, no, she's going to damage property. No, she doesn't. And then after like 5 minutes, it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's complicated. Are you tense? Stay tense. I'm just saying.
Stay tense, because it's going to get tense eventually. We also had a scene where Nacho gets disowned because he doesn't think what he did with Hector is going to work. And so he goes and tells his dad Hector's going to come and he's going to...
I mean, he watched it. He saw Hector get super upset and he saw him not keel over and he's like, oh, dear.
We all know that something is going to affect Hector. I think Nacho jumped the gun.
Yes. But also, I think Nacho is the most interesting character in the whole series because he is so bluff and bluster, so hardcore from the streets, so insane, criminal. But then you get this deeper. He's a reverse Walter White, is what he is. Is you start off with a cartoon bad guy, and you unveil the sensitive son underneath, and plus Michael Mondo. I don't know why, but something about his performance. He's my favorite character on the whole show.
And then finally, Mike signs on as a security consultant at a little firm called Madrigal.
Oh yeah, we saw Stevia. Stevia was there. I forget her real name.
I think it's Lydia.
Lydia.
Yeah. No. I know Stevia was her sweetener of choice.
No, you're thinking of Stevie Nicks.
No, I was trying to play coy, but yes, no, it was great. All of that was super believable. It was really good.
Yeah, and sometimes these backstory connections, they work for me, but I'm like, it feels too convenient now that I know what happens later, although it probably wouldn't have if I read the story forward. This one doesn't. This one, I'm like, when I see Lydia, I'm like, of course this is how he gets drawn into her world. He needs to launder the money. Fring has a contact. He's a security consultant. Makes perfect sense. Like this, if you didn't know that was Lydia, you would think, okay, well, what's this about, right? In fact, I almost wish they hadn't put Lydia there and not told me it was Madrigal and then reveal that later, because it just makes so much sense on its own. Like, okay, this is what Fring would do, and this is why Mike would do it. And it's just so elegant how we're seeing Mike get drawn into that.
I liked it the way it was. I didn't mind. It didn't feel heavy-handed. Like, look, this is that chick from that other show that you know. This is that company from that other show. The scene stood on its own.
Sitting there pouring stevia. Like.
Right. There was not a moment like, give me a coffee. Make sure there's extra stevia in it because I love stevia. That was my thing on the other show. So, man, it was great. It was great all around. It's a good show. Turns out Vince Gilligan knows what he's doing.
I'd say it's best call, Saul.
All right.
All right, let's move on to Justified episode 10, season 6. I was actually texting you while watching this show, which implies that I wasn't paying as close attention to the show.
All right, hold on. Can we do a little
yeah. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Playhouse theater here.
This
we're gonna recreate the actual moment that Tom and I
Text Message Theater presents Justified.
Yes, exactly. Text Message Theater. I started. Here, I found it.
Here we go. Yeah.
Justified feels more like broadcast than cable this episode.
The one where she runs at the end?
Haven't got to the end.
Whoops.
The one where they're moving the money. It's that scene where Raylan muses that Boyd won't fall for the move to Charlotte, and the next scene, Boyd reveals he has not fallen for the move to Charlotte.
Yeah. At some point, it's clear that literally every single party correctly knows what every other party is up to, and then they all still do what they planned anyway. It's weird.
Which is every episode of CSI I've ever seen. And I've seen maybe 3, I'll admit. Hey, I want to do our next show tournament style. Anyway, yeah.
No, let's keep going.
Ask patrons for nominations this week, then do head-to-head votes for over the following 3 weeks.
Great idea.
Then there's a lot of me talking about the negotiate anyway.
Oh, this is the part that I love. Hold on, let me do my impression of Tom. Also, loads of continuity weirdness. In the diner, they talk about the guy wearing a cowboy hat and is clearly a fedora. Ava says the name on the passport is Mrs. O'Fay, but when she shows it to camera, it's Cheryl Brown. And the diner had an ad for Burbank Creamery. Maybe I'm just paying closer
attention than usual.
And to which I reply, I think that's what happens when a story fails to grip you. That and texting your friends during the show.
Haha, true. Dickie Bennett plays Jesus in the American Gods finale.
Yeah, dude. I'm sorry.
Actually, one of those continuity areas, just before you say why you're sorry, I wonder if the passport name being different than Mrs. O'Fay is because of what happens at the end where Ava takes off on her own. Maybe she didn't want to tell Raylan the real name.
Okay. You know what? That's a good point. Also, Justified is wonderfully acted. It is, in general, well directed. It is a hot mess of set pieces, and it is as though you are watching an ADD child move from shiny object to shiny object. And I had really hoped it was all part of a master plan to bring it all together, and I am not feeling that right now.
I mean, I do think it'll be brought all together. But when I said that this feels like a broadcast show, broadcast shows often still will do things like have characters say things that are about to happen before they happen because they know people are making dinner, going to the bathroom, running, the non-DVR era of television trained you to do it that way. And cable doesn't do that because they're like, hey, our viewers pay more attention or they DVR more often or whatever. And so it's just struck me that there was a lot of that kind of writing. And I don't know if that's just because they had Benjamin Cavill writing this episode, apparently. I don't know anything about him, so I can't say that that's like his mode of operations. But the broad strokes of it don't bother me, is I guess what I'm trying to say. The fact that Ava is going to try to jump on Boyd and Raylan makes perfect sense. The fact that Boyd might anticipate the double cross makes perfect sense. The fact that they put some pressure on Catherine because they want to make sure that they can bust somebody out of this. It all makes perfect sense. And I think it will get tied up in a way that doesn't, in fact, defy logic. But the way they're getting there just doesn't feel as original as it did the first few seasons to me.
Yeah. Also, who is for sure dead at this point? Because I feel if I was a smarter person, I would have gone back and reviewed. This was another one I was so excited over last week that I immediately watched it, and now in my mind, Boyd is dead, and what's his name is dead. But I might be wrong.
Well. Yeah. Okay. So Boone kills Loretta's great aunt. When Duffy gets handcuffed by his boy. And then, Boyd gets shot. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but
we don't know that he's dead, though.
Well, exactly. And to be honest, like there's only so many times you could press that button, and it makes me resistant to buy into any of it. I feel myself on guard.
There's only 3 episodes left, so they're not going to get to push that button any more times.
Sure. Well, I mean, insofar as the story will be over, but I'm not going to laud it as the best move for them to make. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, shooting Boyd doesn't have to kill him, though.
I mean, okay. So to me, a series is ruined the moment I realize everybody's made of rubber. We are dangerously close to that point.
But shooting someone doesn't have to kill them. Like that. I
agree.
That is the truth of life too. Like it's just as ridiculous to say every time somebody gets shot, they die.
You have a story, and in that story are rules of storytelling, and there are certain things that mean things. For example, and you get to subvert expectation only so many times before what you've done is actually set a new set of expectations. The best example of this
is... And those expectations are different based on what everybody brings to the story. So they're not going to play the same way for every single person.
Well,
I don't think, for me, that shooting someone and them not dying breaks the wall of expectation for me.
That is my point, is that my new expectation is that anybody shot can just get up the next day.
No, but that's not what I'm saying. They don't get up the next day. They go to the hospital and they get treated.
Okay, they get a timeout. They get a timeout or they don't get a timeout.
But this idea of like, oh, bang, bang, fall down dead, that's children's playtime too. So it's just, I get what you're saying. I don't want them to be made rubber, and they have played the Boyd ticket a lot.
Starting on the first episode.
So it's getting pretty close.
Yeah. But
it would be just as silly if like, oh, he's been shot, so he must be dead.
So, without saying who, and again, apologies if you didn't want to know anything about Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones does a very good job of every character that appears to die definitely stays dead. And then they subverted that in the season by making a character who, or in some season, I won't say which one.
Well, in the books, they also
I have to bleep that out.
In the books, they also subverted too.
Correct. But you get to subvert to powerful impact if it's used sparingly. And in this case, it's just been overused to where I don't feel any regret or loss.
How many times has Boyd been dead?
Well, certainly 2 now.
Which ones?
The very first episode and the episode we just watched.
Both of which. That's the problem. It's not that many if it isn't the episode we just watched. And that's the problem, is you just blew up Boyd and had us worry that he was dead. Now you shot him and it's like, well, wait a minute. We just thought maybe Boyd was dead from the explosion and he wasn't. And in fact, you didn't even give us any suspense on it. He just ran in with a little, black marks on his face like he was in a cartoon.
Like, woo! Oh, golly.
Yeah. That was a close one.
So,
and
again, before you email, I enjoy the show. I enjoy the performances. I enjoy the delivery of everything. It's not a very interesting conversation if we don't talk about the cracks in the facade.
And the good stuff. And there is good stuff. But in this particular episode, I didn't see as much good stuff that was new.
Agreed. I didn't understand. It's a little bit nonsensical at this point for me. Everybody's all over the map.
Disagree with that. I don't think it's nonsensical. That's not my problem. It all makes sense. It's just not as neatly told and interestingly told for me.
I agree.
Well, then we're done. Because if we're agreeing...
well, no, there's nothing else to argue about. Son of a gun. Doggone it.
But yeah, like we said, next week we will do another episode of Justified, but we only got 3 left. So get on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/Cordkillers, and let us know what we should include in the great Spoilerin Time Library Show Tournament that we will kick off next week. Brian and I will confer on what should go into the tournament, and we'll post the polls up on patreon.com/Cordkillers as well.
Heck yes. We love you.
Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.